Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel Pigskin Addicts. Back again with another live stream here. So we're gonna get into some stuff here momentarily. Let me just get a couple things together here on the stream. Make sure everything is good. Let me know. Let's see. Bring up the chat. If you're watching, put a thumbs up if you can hear me. If the audio is good, if the video is okay. Go ahead and put a thumbs up in the chat for me, please, if you don't mind. Um, just go ahead and try to make sure everything is good here on my end. Yeah, everything looks good on my end. Let me just double check here. Um, all right, so I think we are good. Let me just go ahead and share this post so people know that I'm live now. So go ahead and promote that. And all right, here we go. So here we go, guys. Thank you guys for joining me again. Another live stream, second day in a row. Haven't done this in a long time. 2 days in a row. So I'm gonna get on here. This is gonna be a little shorter live stream than last night's. Last night was pretty long. But there's a few things that I wanted to talk about as far as free agency goes. With the Chargers, I think right now you can say that we are officially in the second wave of free agency. First wave of free agency, you know, right when it starts, that's when deals start to get going, right? A lot of the big money is given out, right? A lot of the premium free agents are off the market, right? Almost as quick as it starts, right? They're off the market. They've been negotiating with teams. Their agents or representatives have been reaching out, right? Garnering interest, and a lot of these deals get done very, very quickly. So um, those guys are off the market now. The big money has been given out. We are now officially in the second wave. We're in the second wave of free agency, and this is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how the Chargers approach this. Now, they already made a move yesterday. They re-signed Will Clapp, the backup center. He was not all that great last year. Really wasn't all that great last year at all. But I understand why the Chargers made that move. They're going to need some linemen, some backup offensive linemen. That's going to become a priority, I think, now than anything else. I'm going to touch on the John Johnson situation as well, too. And I'm going to tell you why I don't think it's going to happen anymore. With the Chargers signing Will Clapp, with them re-signing him, this to me, it officially opens up the window for some of the backup offensive linemen or some of the offensive linemen who, didn't have great 2022 seasons, right? Cheap offensive linemen. This is going to open it up, right? Where negotiations are going to start for backup offensive linemen. So, again, we're in the second wave of free agency. There are still a lot of good players out there as far as free agents go. There's a ton of good players still out there. So, like I said, this is going to be interesting to see how the Chargers really approach this because this is the most important time for the Chargers, right? We went into free agency. We seen the Chargers didn't really make any moves, right? And obviously they couldn't because they're capped out, right? They have a lot of money, a lot of obligations, right? Going into 2024, and you want to get Justin Herbert. You want to get him locked up long term as well, too. So we can understand why the Chargers didn't spend money, in the first wave of free agency, right? Outside of Eric Kendricks, that was pretty much the only deal. Now, this is the time where the Chargers have to make a move or two. They got to make a move or two, right? And there's several different ways that you can go about this. Last that I checked, the Chargers have about $14 million in total cap space. And that includes the budgeting of draft picks and things like that as well, too. So as far as money that you can actually spend, you're probably looking at maybe $8 million left to actually spend. So this is going to be an interesting time for the Chargers. How are they going to approach this? How do they approach this? What moves do they make? There are some moves out there. I'm gonna get into it right now about who I think the Chargers should go after, right? If they're not going to, re-sign some of the free agents that played with them last year. So that's the first thing I want to get to. I think the most pressing matter that needs to be taken care of is the edge position, right? You obviously have Chris Rumph under contract. He was a guy that has underwhelmed in his first 2 years. He hasn't really done a whole lot, and he's not somebody that you can count on to go out there and get consistent pressure on the quarterback, right? If Bosa or Mac goes down again. What you have to do here, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, you got to re-sign Kyle Van Noy. That's a guy that has to be re-signed. He was very, very, very important last season. And I know his stats weren't all that great, right? Nothing to write home about, right? He didn't, break any records or do anything like that. But he's a guy that started to come on towards the end of the season. He started to come on towards the end of the season. He started to get more pressure, right? He started to win his one-on-ones, right? His one-on-one numbers look really, really good towards the end of the season. He was able to get pressure, right? And he was able to be a consistent on the other side of Khalil Mack, right? He's obviously not Joey Bosa. He's obviously not Khalil Mack, but Kyle Van Noy is a damn good player in this NFL. So to me, if you're going to make any move, right? If you're going to make any move, if you can make just one more move, that's the move to make. You have to make sure that your edge is solidified, right? And now in the draft, you can have some flexibility, right? If there is edge that you like, if a Nolan Smith falls, right, then obviously you can take him. If a Lucas Van Ness falls, right, you can obviously take him as well too. But with the resigning of Kyle Van Noy, you can actually, be a little bit more selective with who you pick at edge, right? Knowing that, okay, we got this guy locked up for this year, right? We can be a little more selective, right? If there's a player that we don't actually really, really, really like, we don't have to take him just because we have to fill a hole, right? Just because we have to fill a need. I think it allows the Chargers to have some flexibility as far as the draft goes, and the whole thing about selecting the next best available player that comes into play if you re-sign a Kyle Van Noy. So I think that should be taken care of right away. There should be no issues with trying to bring Kyle Van Noy back, and I don't think money. I don't think it's going to be an issue, right? The longer these guys stay unsigned, the more their earnings go down, right? Their potential earnings for the 2023 season, it goes down. And that's what the second wave of free agency is, right? It's kind of playing a waiting game. I know teams do it. I know players do it, but the closer you get to OTAs, the closer you get to training camp, right, with guys being unsigned, the more and more their price goes down. Right now, we're still early in the second wave of free agency, right? So I don't think their price is dropping, extremely low. But the longer you wait it out, the more time these guys go without being signed to a team, the lower the asking price has to be. And that's just the way it is. Kyle Van Noy signed with the Chargers last year, I believe after the draft. So if they're looking to do a deal around the same time, will he be available? Possibly. Possibly. He's a good player. I know he can help a lot of teams in this league right now. And I think he has a lot to offer. His experience in New England, his Super Bowl experience, all of that stuff. He has a lot to offer a team. So if the Chargers are thinking about locking him up, I think you got to go now. Kind of, it's got to be within the month. I think you got to offer him something, allow him a chance maybe to counter offer, negotiate, whatever. But I think you have to offer him something right now. He's been sitting out there unsigned. He was a guy that was productive for you. And again, with the age of Khalil Mack, with the injury history of Joey Bosa, right? You absolutely have to bring in another veteran edge. I don't think it's even a talking point at this point right now. I think it is something that you have to do. You must do it. These guys, they play very, very tough. They play, rough football, right? Both of these guys, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, they're both physical players. And both of them are a little injury prone, right? The older they get, they've played a lot of football. They've been banged up, throughout their careers. You have to have some insurance outside, because if you don't get any pressure, if you don't get any consistent pressure, this defense is not going to get better. It is what it is. That's what it looks like. This defense is not going to get better. You have to have somebody that is going to be able to generate consistent pressure off the edge, right? And again, if you want to count on Khalil Mack and Bosa being healthy all season long, right? We hope so, but the way that things work, the way that things shake out, historically, when you look at this league, guys who are older, guys who are injury prone, wind up injured. So it wouldn't be a surprise, it wouldn't be a shock to me if either one of those guys winds up injured, right? And then what are you going to do after that? You can't just throw Chris Rumph out there and say, "Hey, go do what these guys do," because he just doesn't have it. He doesn't have it physically, and he's not that type of player, right? He was a 5th-round pick for a reason. We get it, we understand it, but I think the Chargers, they have to cover their backs here. They really do. You have to get another edge player. This defense really hinges on those two guys being healthy, right? And they decided to restructure their contracts. They decided to bring them back. So obviously the Chargers are expecting something from those guys. They're expecting something from that duo this season, right? And again, I've had my reservations about it, but what's done is done. They will be back. They will be Chargers in 2023. So what happens if they do get injured? What is the plan? What's the backup plan behind them? As of right now, it doesn't look like there is one. It really doesn't. Doesn't look like there is one. I know that there is a lot of talent as far as edge rushers in the draft, but you have to have a contingency plan, right? Blaming everything on injuries every single season is not going to work. It's just not going to work. You have to have a contingency plan. So Tom Telesco, Brandon Staley, knowing that this team is injury prone, looking at 2022, right? Looking at all the injuries, they are fools if they do not prepare for something similar in 2023. You cannot use the injury excuse in 2023. I don't want to hear it. I really don't want to hear it. Yes, you hope for the best. You hope that these guys can stay as healthy as they possibly can. But this is a game of collisions, right? This is a very, very tough physical game. 17 games, right? Plus, if you plan to have a deep playoff run, you're looking at upwards of 20 games of collisions, right? And, with very little time in between, right? A week or so, that's not enough time for guys the age of Khalil Mack, for guys with the injury history of Joey Bosa. That's not enough time to really recuperate to get back to 100%, right? So you're going to keep, just chipping away at your health week in and week out. This is a very scary proposition for the Chargers. Defensively, things can go very, very, very bad if they don't re-sign Kyle Van Noy, or if they don't bring in a veteran edge of some description. They need this. They absolutely need this. This is non-negotiable. And it was something that I tweeted about once I seen the Chargers restructure, right, Mack and Bosa's contracts. I thought, for me, if I'm going to do that, if I was in the front office and I made that decision, okay, we're going to bring both of these guys back, that's an automatic trigger to bring back Kyle Van Noy because we need insurance, right? The likelihood of it, right? Percentages, historically, you can look at everything, right? Look at all the analytics that people want to talk about. If you look at analytical models, what at least one of them says that either Bosa or Khalil Mack is going to get hurt at some point during the season, right? They're not going to be able to play all 17 games. Just go through their injury histories, you plug in all that data, they will tell you that, yes, there's a good likelihood that one of these guys gets injured. So what do you do at that point? Do you run around and panic, like a chicken with his head cut off? Or do you make the move early in free agency, right? March, April, to have that backup plan? So if they were doing that, if they're going to bring both of these guys back, you have to bring up the backup plan as well, too. You need the insurance. So to me, it doesn't make sense, right? Putting all of your eggs in older players' baskets, right? Not only for them to dominate, right, like everybody wants them to, but to stay healthy while doing it. So to me, it just doesn't make sense why Kyle Van Noy is not re-signed yet. And honestly, if we're looking at it, right, if he's not re-signed, and if the Chargers do go out and maybe they draft an edge, maybe third round or whatever, third, fourth round or whatever, that's who you're looking at to potentially save the season if one of these guys went down, right? And that's not a place that you want to be. You don't want to come in, put that pressure on a rookie, third, fourth round rookie. Yeah, Khalil Mack went down. He's going to be out for 6 weeks. So what we need you to do is come in and save the season. That's not what you want to put on a rookie. Like this is not set up for success. The Chargers are not set up for success. So I'm looking at this thing and I'm just like, I'm really, really worried about this. But there's still time left. Like I said, we are early in the wave of free agency. So we'll see what they're able to do with this. But I don't like the direction right now. If they're going to load up on defense, fine. But have contingency plans. You can't come out and say, "Oh man, we're injured. We're injured again." And gosh darn it, if it wasn't for these injuries, we would be on the roll. We'd be on a path to the Super Bowl. No, you have to plan for it. You've seen what happened. The injuries happened early last season. Uh, week 2, week 3? That's when the injuries started to happen. They started to pile up as the weeks went along. You can't come into this season being naive and saying, "Man, yeah, well, everybody's healthy now, so we're gonna go and do something now." No, if they players got injured last year, it's a good chance that they get injured again this year. Um, but it's just the nature of the game, and you have to plan around it. You have to be smart about it. And if you are right, you can at least put yourself in the position to maybe possibly compete, and maybe possibly win some of the games that you expect to win, even without your stars. If you make those plans, right, and if you take the steps to address those issues early enough. I don't want to see I don't want the Chargers to be in a position where they have to go out and sign guys again like they did last year, right? They brought back Jeremiah Atachu, right? That dude was a bust, right? He was a second round pick way long ago when it was the San Diego Chargers. He bounced around the league and had to bring him back in an emergency situation, right? And they brought a couple other guys in an emergency situation as well, too. Guys who did absolutely nothing, right, on defense. So if you want to be in that position again, if the Chargers are going to be in that position again, there's no excuses this year. There really isn't no excuses. No injury excuses can be made. You've seen what happened to this team last year. You've seen how they got decimated by injuries. I don't want to hear any excuses when it comes to injuries this year. I really, really don't. I want the Chargers to be prepared, right? Prepare, plan, right? Plan. If you don't plan, you're planning to fail. So just do something with this edge position. Bring in a veteran, right? If it's not Kyle Van Noy, maybe somebody else. And I'll get to that a little later right now, but you have to address it. You can't just go around thinking that everything is going to be all great, all, rainbows and roses now because we're quote unquote healthy. So you got to address it at some point, and we'll see what happens. It's like I said, it's still early in the second wave, so I'll give them opportunity. But the way that things are shaking right now, with the draft being less than a month away, we're about 3 weeks away from the draft at this point right now. Not looking good. Not looking good. So that's my take on that. Um, Van Noy and Callahan would be solid. Yeah, they would. They would be a solid re-signing for me. Both of those guys. Both of those guys would be. And I'm gonna jump into Callahan right now a little bit as well too. Have to draft an edge and get a vet edge before draft, i.e. Melvin Ingram. Yeah, Melvin Ingram is still out there as well too. He's not what he used to be, but he's a veteran. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to make plays. Um, and he's a guy that has had a lot of sacks in his career, right? He's generated a lot of pressure. Pretty much every team that he's been on, right? Just with the Chargers, but I think he went to Kansas City after that for a playoff run. I think he was with the Dolphins last year, right? And he popped, a few times, right, on tape. He can still play, right? He can't do what he used to do, but he can still play, and he still knows what he's doing, right? So that would be a good, really, really good pickup to bring him back. Maybe he can retire a Charger as well too. But yeah, I like that idea. Um, Leonard from the Rams, I'm going to get to him. Y'all see the thumbnail. That's why I put him in there. Alexa says definitely go after Callahan again. Yes. I he's still out there as well too. He's still out there. I would like bringing him back. And yeah, facts. No more injury excuses. Yeah, Staley gone if this defense doesn't look good. Yeah, I agree. You have to. You got to throw the excuses out the window. We've seen what happened. We've seen what could happen. We've seen what could go wrong. So if you're not making plans to address that, then yeah, you obviously have to get a new brain trust in, because those injury excuses are not going to fly like they did last year. So now with Bryce Callahan, Bryce Callahan is kind of the same feeling that I have as far as Kyle Van Noy, just a little different. Now I think with Bryce Callahan, his veteran leadership is going to mean a lot to the younger guys in the DB room, but he also played really, really well last year. He had a fantastic season. And this is a guy that I'm really surprised is not signed. I'm surprised that he has not been re-signed or signed with another team. He had a fantastic season. There's a lot of teams that run this Fangio defense, right? The same defense that the Chargers run. There's a lot of teams that run the same defense. He could be used in a bunch of different places. So I'm surprised. I really am shocked that he is not signed yet. Now, the the Chargers do have somebody ready to go behind him. I think John Taylor has impressed the coaches, Staley, in particular. But again, he was a rookie last year. I think he's got some talent. And again, these are Bryce Callahan. He's hasn't been signed yet. He's still out on the market. This is cheap. This is cheap insurance that you can bring in, right? You want to have insurance where you can have it, right? Obviously, you can't have it at every single position, but when you can get cheap insurance players to come in and play a role and play it well, Bryce Callahan played his role well, and there's nothing that tells me that he wouldn't play it well again in 2023. Same defense. He will be coming in playing the same position. He knows the defense. So there's nothing that tells me that he would fall off, right? There's nothing that would tell me, right? The only thing that can really derail his 2023 would be a potential injury, right? But he stayed relatively healthy last year. So I really don't know why they're not trying to bring in Bryce Callahan. If it was me, I would have signed him right away. Maybe the money is not there. I don't even know if they offered him a contract. If they did, maybe he didn't like the contract. I don't know, but there's something there that tells me, he should have at least been signed maybe a couple of weeks ago, right? If you're not going to, sign him the first day of free agency, maybe a couple of weeks ago, right? I think he was just as important to this defense as a Drew Tranquil was, right? We see how the Tranquil situation happened. He was very, very, very good last year. And I think, him being in the same position, right, in 2023, second year in the defense, right, most of the same guys around you, I think he could really pop. I think he could really pop and have a wonderful season, right? Maybe a potential Pro Bowl season in the slot as a slot cornerback. But I don't know. He's still out there for some reason. And again, a lot of the other teams haven't taken a flyer on him yet either. So it's going to be interesting to see with him. I want to see him back with the Chargers. I really, really do. I think he had a great season. I think he can come in and have another great season. And again, you have John Taylor, who he looked pretty good in the slot last year, especially later on in the season. But the Chargers didn't play great offenses like later on in the season. So that's kind of one of the things that it not really worries me, but you kind of raise an eyebrow. Can he do this against good offenses, right? Can he play at that same level against good offenses when he's facing a really, really good slot receiver, right? Can he lock him down like he locks down, a slot receiver from the Colts or a slot receiver that the Rams had last year? Can he play at that same level? So that's what we're going to have to see from John Taylor this year. But we know Bryce Callahan can do it because he was good. He was very, very good against some really good receivers last year. Had a couple of interceptions as well, too. So I really, really like what he brings. I really do like what he brings. And hopefully he's back. Hopefully he's back with the Chargers. I would not be surprised if he is the next guy to be signed, right? Whether it's with us or somebody else. I would not be shocked at all because he really has that impact. He has that impact out there. And again, a lot of teams run this Fangio defense. So I would really, really like to see if he can come back and do the same thing, or if he goes to another team and balls out there. But I am kind of surprised that he is still available. That one is a little it's a little shocking to me, to be honest. Lexi says, I felt like he locked down the slot. He did. He was very good. And he knew the defense. You can tell that he knew the defense. He played with a lot of confidence. He had, I can't remember how many interceptions he had, but he had some interceptions that were really, really impressive. He's a guy that can really, really cover in that slot, right? He covers like a cornerback in that slot. He has really good leverage, and he's never too far away from the receivers, right? He's not getting shook out of his shoes. People are not running by him, just running past him like the road runner or whatever. Like, he can keep up with some of the faster receivers, but he's also physical enough to, battle, right? Maybe, get into the little hand fights at the line of scrimmage. He's physical enough to do all of that stuff and to reroute some of the smaller receivers as well, too. So I like him. He looked really good on tape last year. And you can tell that he played with a lot of confidence because he knew the defense, right? That was the defense that he played in under Fangio in Denver. So he knew exactly what he was doing, and he was good. He was very, very good. But I would like to see him come back. Really would like to see him come back. Let's see. Do they really think JC will come back 100%? that's the case, then they will move on to the slot. I don't know. There's the interview that Staley had last week. I think he said that there's no timetable. There's no official timetable for J.C. Jackson's return. So if there's no timetable now, I don't know what they're expecting from him. If they cannot seriously expect him to come back 100% this season. At least not early in the season. If he does come back that early, right? If you're looking at J.C. Jackson playing towards 100%, it would be later on in the season, maybe closer to the playoffs, right? If he is going to be 100% at all this year, it'll probably be down the line then. So I don't know. I don't think that they are expecting him to come back 100%. That's going to be interesting too, though, because if he does come back, they're going to have to make some room somewhere, right? You obviously have to play him. He has to play, right? If he is healthy enough to play, J.C. Jackson is going to play because he has this huge contract, right? You can't sit an $82 million corner on the bench. You just can't do it. Ownership will not let you do that. You got to play this guy. You have to play him, and he will play when he is 100% when he does come back. Now, what does that mean for everybody else? I don't know. Do they move Asante Samuel to the slot? I don't know if they move him to the slot. Michael Davis is going to be a free agent after 2023, so I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they move him to the slot. I don't know. They're going to have to make some type of arrangements for that. And the Chargers don't typically plan things out very well. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did move Asante Samuel Jr. to the slot. He's not a slot corner though. He is a zone corner. We've seen, his performance the last game he played right against Jacksonville. He's a zone corner. He can be aggressive. He sits on routes, and that's not really something you can do in the slot. So I don't know how effective he would be in the slot. I know he is a smaller guy, like his size, his slot corner size, but I don't know how effective it would be in the slot. I really, really wouldn't want to even I wouldn't want to test that at all if he was in the slot, but all I can say is that we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Just know and understand the Chargers do not make preparations for things like this. So J.C. Jackson is injured right now, and he's going to probably start camp on the PUP list, right? So he'll be on the PUP list, and he'll probably be there the entire camp, right? So he probably won't even be cleared to play until week 6. And if he is able to come back week 6, 7, 8, or something like that, I expect the Chargers to maybe start off slow with him, but they're eventually gonna have to make some plans for that. And I just think that they are not going to do their diligence, and he's gonna come back, and somebody's gonna get moved around, and things can go off the rails from there. But we'll see. We'll cross the bridge when we get there. But I don't like Asante Samuel in the slot. I think he's more effective on the outside. And we've seen that this season. He had an excellent season this year, and I think he's going to get better. He's just going to continue to get better. He was good his rookie year, even better his second season. I expect him to be really, really good in his third season. So I do not expect him to move to the slot, but we'll see. We'll see when we get there. Let's see. Jathan Reddy, should the Chargers play more press man? I think so. I definitely think so. But it depends on what they want to do defensively, right? And if they don't, this kind of goes back to what I was talking to about the edge position, right? If there's injuries at the edge, right? If there's significant injuries, the Chargers are going to have to play a lot of press man. They're going to have to bring a lot of blitzes to get pressure on the quarterback. That's something that they did not do well last year. They did not get pressure when they needed to get pressure, especially the last 2 weeks of the season, right? Week 18 and then obviously second half at Jacksonville. They did not get pressure. And it's not just about sacks and all of that stuff. They didn't win one-on-ones, right? Joey Bosa did not win his one-on-ones in the playoff game, right? Khalil Mack didn't win a lot of his one-on-ones in the playoff game. They got handled very well because Jacksonville was sending everybody out In their routes, they had to make up the distance, right? 27-0, you have to go empty sets. And the Chargers, they just didn't win their matchup. So you have to be able to bring pressure. Now, if there are injuries at edge, I do expect a lot of man coverage. I expect a lot of blitzing. Um, they're not going to have any reason not to, right? There's no options left. You're going to have to bring pressure somehow. If Chris Rumpf is out there, playing a lot of snaps, you need to bring blitz because he ain't going to get pressure. He gets blocked by tight ends all the time. You're going to have to bring pressure. You're going to have to find the pressure somewhere. And if there is injuries, right, that could really, really hinge the season, right? The season hinges on Bosa and Mack staying healthy, especially if the Chargers don't bring in anybody else. If they let Kyle Van Noy walk and if they don't, bring in anybody else, the season hinges on those guys' health. And they're going to have to play press man. They will. They will have to play press man. So I think that we do see it at some points during the season. I do know that Kansas City, they really, really took apart the Philadelphia Eagles defense in the Super Bowl. And guess what defensive scheme Philadelphia plays, right? You guessed it, Vic Fangio. So they're going to have to change it up. Brandon Staley's going to have to change up his approach at some point because offenses are now starting to adjust to the Fangio defense, right? They're starting to adjust to those deep zones. They really are. They're starting to adjust to it. And with Andy Reid, I know a lot of offensive coaches are probably, working on that as we speak now, right, during this offseason. They're going to come out. They're going to have formations. They're going to have, different things, right, different checks that they can go to that can beat this Fangio defense, right, the deep zone, especially on third down. The Chargers weren't good last year on third down. And if you're not going to be able to bring pressure on third down, then you're going to be giving up a lot of first down conversions, just like they did last year. So they need to play more press man, but I think, again, it all hinges on if the Chargers are able to get pressure with 4 and 5. If they're able to do that, I think they'll be okay defensively. If they're not able to do that, things are going to go off the rail. And it's going to be up to Justin Herbert to save us again, just like he always has. So they do need to play more press man. I just don't know when we'll see it, but I do expect to see it at some point next year. Chip off the old block, G Bear. I don't know what that. I don't know what you're referring to there. If you can clarify that. Let's see. Jathan Rady says, "I noticed the Chargers tend to go man heavy against Kansas City, or could it just be me?" No, they do. They do. They really try. They really try to close the airspace that Patrick Mahomes has. They do that very well, right? I think they're one of the best teams at doing it. But there are situations, though, and particularly third downs where they make a mistake and it's a big first down or a big touchdown. That's what happened 2 years in a row at home against Kansas City, right? That's why we lost on pretty much, the same play 2 years in a row at home to Kansas City, right? They played them well all game long, right? They were able to generate some pressure. They were able to play tighter coverage, make Mahomes hold the ball a little longer than what he wants to. The Chargers have been pretty good doing that, but I think, it's just situational football for the Chargers. They have good game plans. Staley has good game plans against Kansas City, but situationally, though, you must take care of their big guys in situations, right? Obviously, Travis Kelce on third down, he should be double teamed. He should not be running freely off the line. There's no way on any third down at any point during the game where he should be running freely by himself. He should be harassed. He should be hounded off the line, right? It doesn't happen, though. It just doesn't happen. It's just like those little plays that beat us all the time. The game plans are good. The game plans are really, really good, but I think they have to just pay attention. They really, really have to pay attention to what they're doing in those situations. But the game plans are pretty decent. I just feel like they don't execute them, for the duration of the game. Sometimes they let up, and then that's all they need. That's all the Chiefs need, right? They just need you to make a mistake on one play. They need you to make a mistake on one third down, and bam, they got 6 points on the board. So, the game plans are good. They need to focus, especially on third downs. Those are the money downs, and they need to stop them. But they typically do have good game plans against Kansas City. So, yeah. Oh, Asante Samuel Jr. You're talking about. Okay, yeah. He is a chip off the old block. Yeah. He definitely is. Yeah. Asante Asante Samuel Sr. was very, very good, very good. Cornell Jones, O-line is solid, but one injury away from having issues, need insurance and draft or into free agency. Yeah, and I think that they will probably address that in the draft. They're going to have to at some point. You're going to have to address the issues that you had last year, right? And that's something that I talked about. I touched on it. The Chargers had a lot of issues. They had a ton of issues as far as the offensive line goes, especially during the middle of the season. Herbert was the most pressured quarterback for, I can't remember which weeks it were, but it was about I want to say a 5-week span where Herbert was the most pressured quarterback. So yes, they're going to obviously need to address those issues, and they haven't as of yet. But I think that they're going to have to. Right? They're going to have to. They cannot waste any more resources. They just can't. They just cannot waste any more resources. They need to address the issues. Address the issues that happened last year. And if they don't, then they deserve to be fired in the middle of the season. Brandon Staley and Tom Tillett both deserve to be fired in the middle of the season. The excuses go out of the window. We've seen what happened. We've seen what can happen to a team last year that's talented, that has injuries, right? We've seen it. Now fix it. And if they're not going to fix it, then they need to go. So I'm curious to see how they address all of these issues, but we'll see. We'll see how they do it. We'll see how they do it. I'm very, very curious to see. I hate the NFL. I get we might be good at corner, but man, I would love DJ Turner from Michigan. Slot corner who runs a 4.26 and a 40 is hard to find and can play on the outside too. Yeah, I seen him, DJ Turner. Yeah, he's a good athlete. But yeah, I just think the cornerback room is too stacked right now, especially with J.C. Jackson coming back. There's too many guys. There's not really a place for him right now. And to put a guy like that on special teams, it just, because he's not going to start. He wouldn't be starting. So I don't know. The cornerback room is pretty stacked right now. There's pretty decent guys in the cornerback room. J.C. Jackson will be a part of it too. I know a lot of people count him out, but he will be back. He's making too much money for him to not, be on this roster. So he'll be there. You got to count him in. So there's just too many guys right now in the cornerback room. I don't think you can bring him in and get the best of him on special teams. I think he's a much, much better player than that. But I did watch him a lot this year. I watched Michigan a lot this year. He was very good. Michigan's defense was very good. They have a couple of guys on their defense as well, too. I like the edge guy. I believe his name is Mike Morris. I like him. I really like him. I think he's going to be like a 3rd, 4th rounder. The Chargers could have a shot at him too, but Michigan, they did have a lot of good defensive players on that team. So yeah, I like him. Alexis Garcia, do you think Will Clapp was the best backup center? No, he was not. No, he wasn't. Yeah, he was bad. He was bad when Lindsey was out. He wasn't on the same page as Justin Herbert. And the reason why he was brought in last year was because he was in New Orleans with Sean Payton and Joe Lombardi, right? So he was a guy that was the reason why they brought him in was because he knows the offense, and he knows all of the checks and being able to slide the line and things like that. Now this is the Kellen Moore offense. He doesn't know this offense, so no, he's not the best backup center. But I get that. I get why they would want to sign him, right? They felt like he was good enough. They felt like he was good enough, to play in emergency situations, I guess. So I get why they brought him back, and he probably came back really cheap as well too. So I don't know what the numbers are yet. I haven't found them yet, but I would bet that it's probably like a $1 million contract, 1 year, $1 million or something like that. That's what I would assume, because he was a free agent all this entire spring long, and nobody else signed him. So he probably came really cheap, and that has to do with it as well too, the cost. So no, he wasn't the best, but he was probably the cheapest right now. So yeah. Just so freaking pumped about Kellen Moore, man. He did that with Dak and Cooper. Now he has Justin Herbert. I agree. Definitely agree. I'm really excited about the offense. I think the offense is going to be the best part of this team. It was at points last year as well too, but I think it's going to be even more obvious to even casual fans that this is going to be an offensive led team, and a lot of people are going to towards middle of the season, whatever. A lot of people are going to wonder why the Chargers didn't bring in more weapons. This conversation that we're having now, a lot of people are going to be having this in 6 months or whatever. So I anticipate that. I anticipate this offense being really, really good. Denver Henderson, no, he's okay, but cheap. Yeah, exactly. He's a cheap. He came back for the cheap. Came back for the cheap. I definitely agree with that. Should the Chargers consider bringing back DJ Fluker for depth? They already are. They are interested in him. I was looking at some of the reports. I think they were. I think they were at the Alabama Pro Day, if I'm not mistaken. I think there was like, what did they say? I think it was like 12 teams there looking at him. I think the Chargers were one of them. They are interested in bringing him back. But, with him, I think the last time he played was 2021, I think. So he's been out of the league for a while now. As on coming in on a cheap contract or whatever, yeah, that would be fine. But I think it just depends on if he's able to move, right? He looks good. He looks really, really good. He lost a lot of weight. He is, I think, at like 330 now, but he's got a flat stomach and stuff. So he lost a lot of weight. He can move around a lot better. That would be that if he can still play at average level, that would be a good pickup if they can. But I hope that he's able to, because he started his career with the Chargers. So I'm sure he wouldn't have any trouble, coming back to the Chargers. But yeah, hopefully they are able to work out a deal with him, because the Chargers do need some quality backup linemen. And that's a guy, he played at a high level in college. He had a couple of good years in the NFL as well too. So I definitely wouldn't mind that at all. All for bringing back Fluker. He looked in shape. His muscle memory would kick in full in camp. Yeah, yeah. He's just been out of the league for a while. He just has to get his legs underneath him. Get back into football shape. Once he does that, then I think he'll be fine. I don't think he was injury prone when he played either. So yeah, I would definitely would not be against him coming back at all. Definitely would not be against that. Brandon Mitchell, do you really believe this defense can be a top 10 D? I don't think that happens unless Staley makes a massive adjustment against the run. We struggle against any balanced offense. Top 10? No, I don't. I really don't think so, to be honest. I don't. I just don't see it. There's too many holes on this defense. And there has been too many holes in this defense the past couple of years. If they were able to do that, right, it'd be like a worst to first type of thing. And that typically doesn't happen with the same coach, right? That always, if the Chargers were getting a new, defensive play caller or something, then maybe, but they're still going to be running the same stuff. They just really, really need to be more sound, and they need to play better defenses in base packages. The Chargers, they do a lot of disguising and things like that, right? I think it's a little bit too much. I honestly think it's a little bit too much. If you can line up in your base defense, right, 3-4, with your two safeties back, whatever. If you can stop the run and keep things in front of you, you're going to be able to get teams off the field. I think Staley gets a little too he tries to get a little too exotic, and it just doesn't work. Moving Derwin James around and all of this stuff, it doesn't work. When you can't stop the run, none of that other stuff matters. It just doesn't matter. Like, a lot of people are so enthralled with Derwin James being able to move around. And I think I'm in the minority. I might be in the single minority. I don't give a shit, because we can't stop the run. Like, what does it matter? We can't stop the run. It's like, oh, Derwin James plays well in the box. Yeah, he does. He does play well in the box. But if a team knows that they can run the ball on you, they're going to send offensive linemen to go and block Derwin James, offensive linemen, fullbacks to block him. And as good of a player as Derwin James is, he's not getting off of offensive lineman blocks. He's not getting off of fullback blocks. I don't care. It just doesn't matter. And the tape shows it, right? 2 years. We've had 2 years of this defense, and it shows that he's not the end all be all. Things have to be better up front. You have to get better play up front. Your tackles, right? They got to get more penetration. They have to be better at double teams, right? And your linebackers have to come up and clean up. That's just what it is. It's super simple. And I think Staley is doing a little bit too much as far as the exotic blitzes and stuff like that. Because honestly, a lot of times, like when you watch the tape, and watching the tape last year, right, I would see Staley cook up some really super exotic blitz, right? There's a bunch of guys coming from all these different gaps. A lot of teams completed passes because there's basic coverage on the back end, right? You're in, maybe a shell defense, a cover one, whatever. There's a lot of space being given up, right? There's a lot of airspace for receivers to get open, and there's a big cushion for the cornerback, to close by the time the ball gets there. So, to me, if you're not doing it, if you're not, if your defense is not able to play basic defense, if they're not able to play fundamental defense, right? It really doesn't matter what kind of blitz packages you have. It really doesn't matter where you're moving Derwin James around because you're not doing the fundamentals right. You're just not doing the fundamentals right. It doesn't make sense, right? Think about it in a basketball sense, right? And we've seen a lot of this if you've been a basketball fan, I don't know how old you are, Brandon, but if you've been a basketball fan, and if you were a basketball fan in the late 90s, early 2000s, how many guys came into the league, right? 6'6", 6'7", super athletic, can dunk their ass off, but can't make a jump shot, right? Can't make a jump shot to save their life. That's kind of what this Charger defense is. They can dial up all this exotic pressure, and Brandon Staley can do all of this really, really cute stuff, but they can't get nobody off the field on third down. They can't keep anybody in front of them on third down, right? They can't do the basic things. So I want to see this defense do the basic things. If they come out and do that, they'll get better just by that, right? Without even having to switch anything up. If they just come out, stop the run, keep things in front of them, and get off the field on third down, be able to generate pressure with just 4 or 5 guys, they'll get better just off that. But as far as the scheme goes, I think Brandon Staley, his feet are dug in. This Fangio scheme is the Fangio scheme. Teams are starting to really get used to this game. They're starting to come up with things, to beat this game. And I expect to see a lot of that this year. This Charger defense is going to get tested. It doesn't matter who's out there. It doesn't matter if we sign John Johnson or not. They're going to get tested. So I don't think they can be a top 10 defense. I don't think that they need to, though, to have success. I think this offense is going to be so good. This defense just has to be complementary, right? Get pressure, get off the field on third down. Stop the run, get pressure, get off the field on third down. If they can do those 3 things, they'll be fine this year. They'll be fine. And they'll look like a much, much improved defense, even though, in theory, they really won't be. But they just need to do the basics well. That's it. If they're able to do that, then they'll be fine. But I don't know, man. It's going to be an uphill battle. They will get tested this year. They're going to have to change some things up if they want to be successful. How do you feel about J.C. Jackson coming back from injury? We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. You just have to give him an opportunity to show that he can still play, right? And I'm honestly not expecting a lot from him in 2023. That injury was really bad. So if he does play, and if he does play well for any stretch, I think it's a bonus. I think it's a cherry on top. But I'm not expecting really anything from him in 2023. I think 2024 is going to let us know if his career is going to continue, or if he is just going to be a guy that his career was derailed by a bad injury. I think that'll let us know. So the JC Jackson thing, we have to be patient with that. We're just gonna have to be patient with it because the injury was so bad. Still expecting Chargers to pursue Staley's latest crush safety, John Johnson. That's actually what I was gonna get. Well, no, I actually talked about it already. I don't think so. I don't not anymore. I don't think he's going to. I don't think he's going to be a Charger anymore. Once they signed Will Clapp, I think that pretty much did it, because the Chargers, they do need a couple of more, backup offensive linemen. And, backup offensive linemen, they're going to start going off the board now in free agency. And I think they're going to have to, draft at least 1, maybe 2 in the draft as well, too. So I think the ship has sailed on John Johnson. The Chargers also need edge players, and they also need wide receivers. Right now, they're going to they can only address, certain things in the draft, right? Maybe your first 3 or 4 picks are the only guys that you expect to start, right? Possibly, potentially, if you draft the right players, they can start. Not last year, certainly not last year, but that's what you're looking at, right? Maybe first, second, and third round picks are your drafting starters. Everybody else is kind of depth. So you can only address certain areas, right? The Chargers, they still only have 3 wide receivers on this roster who are going to play next year, right? Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Josh Palmer. That's it. So they need to address wide receiver as well, too, as well as edge, right? So they have more pressing issues than the safety position right now. And, obviously backup linemen as well, too. So the Chargers have pressing issues. And time is starting to become a factor as far as, getting the right guys, right? There's still a lot of free agents out, but when the market starts for some of these backup positions, you're going to see a lot of guys getting signed, and you're going to see a lot of guys going off the board. So there's more pressing matters. I think the ship has sailed on John Johnson. I honestly do. And they're just going to have to make do with what they have, right? I think Alohi Gilman is a decent player, but they're just going to have to make do with him, honestly. I don't think that they pursue him anymore. I think that's done. I think it's all out of the window. With the Eck drama, do you think Josh Kelly and Spiller have a breakout year? I felt Spiller could finally get some passes out of the backfield. I think if they let him go, yes. If they let Austin Eckler go, or if Eckler turns this into a circus of some sorts, and that's what it's trending to right now. I honestly think he should shut up. Every microphone that's in front of his face, he should just push it away. He doesn't need to talk anymore. He's done enough talking. But the way that it's looking now, he's probably going to hold out of OTAs. He's probably going to hold out of training camp. He's going to do all of that stuff. He's going to make this a big circus, and he should just let it go, right? So when he does hold out, the guys who are going to be there, Josh Kelly, Isaiah Spiller, those guys are going to get carries, right? Those guys are going to get reps. They're going to get first team reps. And depending on how they do, right, if they're looking like, they can handle the load, I think Eckler does get traded. I think at some point he does get traded. I think he's done too much talking to this point now. I think that they are looking to actively move him. Whatever they can get for him at some point. He's going to be a free agent after the season, so they know that they're not going to be able to get, a first or second round pick for him. But I think whatever they can get, maybe they can get another player in exchange or something. But I think he's talking his way out of LA, and that's pretty much what he wants. But yeah, I think those guys, if they have good, off seasons, right? If they have good OTAs, if they had good training camps, I think you can go into the season with those guys, rotating carries. So we'll see. And then, if they do plan on trading Eckler, maybe they do bring on another running back, right? Draft another running back, sign another running back. I don't know. But there's some movement that could happen there if Eckler continues what he's doing. I don't like what he's doing. I don't like it, but I understand what he is doing. He wants to get paid, and he should get paid. But if the Chargers can't do it, then maybe another team will for a year or so. But hey, it is what it is, and that's the way it shakes out sometimes. So I don't see the safety position being as much of a need. Yeah, especially when there's much more pressing issues that Chargers have to have. Safety is not going to season. Having Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa go down, or possibly both of them go down, and then having Chris Rumph and nobody else out there, that will break the season. That will most certainly break the season. So yeah, these issues are prioritized, and I think safety is at a very, very, very low priority for the Chargers right now, right? Especially when you have the highest paid safety in the league in Derwin James. Another safety is just not of high priority right now. Same with Xander. I think they can utilize some other players. Yeah, exactly. Jason says Julio Jones on a cheap contract could be worth a shot. I don't know. I don't think he can run anymore. So I don't think he's as fast as he used to. If he wasn't as beat up and he still had his speed, I would say yes. But looking at him the past couple of years, he just doesn't have it. He doesn't have it anymore. And I think, maybe in light of an emergency situation, if somebody went down for the year, then maybe you sign him to get something out of a wide receiver. But just bringing him home right now with the other wide receivers, I don't think so. I think there's way more explosive players in the draft that you can go to. So I don't like the Julio Jones, a potential Julio Jones signing. I don't like that. Okay, so now what I wanted to get to, right? Kyle Van Noy, talked about him, right? We talked about him, and I do think that the Chargers should bring him back, right? I think a lot of people are in agreement with me bringing back Kyle Van Noy. So yeah, I think a lot of people are there other options. What are the other options out there? Now, I talked about one, right? Obviously the draft. You know who I like in the draft. I've said it. I've posted him several times, right? Nolan Smith, that's my guy, right? As far as edge, that's number one. He's the number one edge, and it's not even close. He's the number one edge player in the draft, and it's not even close. If they were to be in a position to draft Nolan Smith, I say yes. You pull the trigger right there. That guy's a generational talent, and I don't think you're going to be able to get anybody like him, right? Maybe not for another 4 to 5 years, right? Another player that's comparable to him. But if the Chargers are not able to draft a Nolan Smith, if they don't like maybe a Lucas Van Ness, if they don't like any of the other players in the draft, if they don't want to, pull the trigger on the 21st pick or maybe even the second round pick, right? If they don't like it and if it's too rich for their blood, who's out there that can make a difference on the edge? Who's out there that can bring pressure, right? Consistently bring pressure. Somebody that you can look at and say, yes, this guy can go out here. He can rush the passer. He can play the run decently. He can do everything that we need him to do. Who is a guy that can do that, right? And I think this guy would be a very, very, very good addition. And I think this is somebody who it just wouldn't be a good addition. I think he can make this defense better. And that's a guy who's out there right now, Leonard Floyd. Leonard Floyd was released by the Rams last month, right? He was released by the Rams. And it wasn't surprising to me. It wasn't a surprising release. I knew that to release players because the Rams are capped out, right? They're capped out. They got a bunch of money owed to Aaron Donald, a bunch of money owed to Matt Stafford, right? They're capped out. They have paid too many positions and they can't afford him anymore, right? So wasn't really a surprise at all. The surprising thing about Leonard Floyd and his situation is that he's still available. That is what gets me is that he's still available. He has not been signed yet, and I think that is very, very, very surprising to me. But to me, it seems like he is very selective in where he wants to go. Um, I'm sure that there's a lot of teams who are offering him a contract the very next day, right? Or possibly even the same day, right? I'm sure he had a lot of interest and I'm sure he garnered a lot of interest. To me, it seems like he wants to be as selective as possible. Now, Leonard Floyd, he's not old. He's not an old guy by any stretch of the imagination, but him playing for the Rams these past few seasons, right? He's got a taste of the playoffs, right? He's got a taste of success, right? I playing, next to Aaron Donald, right? Being able to be a guy that can get pressure, especially in the fourth quarter, right? He played with Von Miller a couple of years ago too, right? So he's played with some of the greats on defense, right? He's been able to improve his game, learn from some of these guys, right? He's had a taste of that, right? He's had a taste of success. He's obviously a Super Bowl champion. I think that he is looking to go to a situation that offers him the best chance at winning, right? Now, wherever he goes right now, I think it's going to be a 1 year deal. Obviously, I think it's a 1 year deal just because he wasn't signed right away. A team didn't throw a bag at him right away, or maybe they did, right? Maybe it was just a situation he didn't want to be in. But because he's waited so long to sign, this is going to be a 1 year deal, right? Everybody who's signing right now, second wave, third wave of free agency, these are all going to be shorter deals. These are going to be 1 year deals that a lot of these players are going to take, right? Whether they want to or not, these are just going to be short deals because it's so late, right? Salary cap is getting lower for most teams. So these guys are going to be on 1 year deals for, the majority of the players out there now. So I think Leonard Floyd wants to make money, but I think he wants to continue to win. I honestly do. I honestly think he wants to continue to win. And I think the Chargers have the best opportunity to sign a guy like Leonard Floyd. Now, obviously, cap space, right? I talked about that. That is an issue. That's definitely going to be an issue. But there are some moves that the Chargers can still make to get Leonard Floyd under contract, right? For a decent amount. Now, when you look at the free agent market, right? There's been a bunch of guys, right, who have seemingly been underpaid, right? The NFL, the owners, they seem like they want to create a middle market for a lot of these players. And I would say that Leonard Floyd probably falls under that. Now, I think he's at the higher tier of the middle market players, but he's still a middle market player. The thing that gives me a lot of optimism about the Chargers potentially signing Leonard Floyd is the deal that Bobby Wagner got in Seattle, right? He signed a 1 year deal for $7 million, and he had a pretty damn good season for the Rams last year. He had a pretty damn good season, but he went back to Seattle, signed for 1 year, $7 million. That I looked at that and I said, okay, a deal like that, and I don't even think Leonard Floyd is get $7 million right now. To be honest with you, I don't think that's out there for him. I think a 1 year, $5 million fully guaranteed deal would get Leonard Floyd on the Chargers. I honestly feel that way because again, when you look at the Bobby Wagner deal, Bobby Wagner had a great season. He didn't play for a great team last year, but he had a great season. He showed that he still has a lot in his tank. Going back to the Seahawks, right? And the Seahawks are a team that they're kind of up and coming, right? They made the playoffs last year, so they're looking to improve, right? They're looking to improve. They're looking to stay in that same spot. They're not rebuilding. They're looking to add, right? Add and solidify their team so that way they get a little further in the playoffs. Leonard Floyd to me really, really makes the Chargers defense go, right? Because if Mack or Bosa went down, Leonard Floyd is a starter, right? He's a starter. Now, when signing him, you're going to have to obviously explain to him that he would be number three on the depth chart, right? As far as the pass rushers and edges go, right? But this is a guy that's going to play, right? He's going to be on the field. You're going to be on the field on third downs, right? You're going to be out there. You're going to have an opportunity to play a lot of snaps, right? And then when you look at the situation, I just talked about it. History says that either Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa will get injured this year, right? That's just what it says. Older players always end up more injured, right? When you get injured and when you get old in the NFL, you do not get healthier. It's just the way of the business, right? That is just what it is. Even in life, the older you get, you don't get healthier as you get older, right? Your health, kind of takes a dive a little bit. So if he is smart, right, and if his representation is smart, he would look at the Chargers as a perfect situation because not only can he stay in LA, right? He's been in LA for the past few years, so he doesn't. If he has a family, if he has a wife, kids, whatever, he doesn't have to make the wholesale changes and move to a different state and all of this type of stuff. He can stay in LA. He can make a decent amount of money, right? I think $5 million, a 1 year, $5 million fully guaranteed contract for Leonard Floyd. I think that's probably what the consensus would be on him for most of the league, right? For most of the league, especially when you look at the Bobby Wagner contract. And I know that they play different positions, but when you're looking at tiers of players, Bobby Wagner is a future Hall of Famer. Leonard Floyd is not, right? He's still a very, very good player, but he's not a future Hall of Famer. So if a future Hall of Fame defender gets a 1 year, $7 million deal, I think a 1 year, $5 million deal for a very productive edge rusher in Leonard Floyd, I think is fair. I think it's fair. So I think that he could probably get that anywhere that he went. Now, if he wants to stay in LA and if he wants to play for a team who is seemingly going to contend, right? The Chargers, they have a lot of holes to fill, but a lot of people, right, including me, I expect them to contend next year, right? I expect them to make the playoffs next year. I expect all of that. So if the Chargers can get him under contract, like I said, 1 year, $5 million, I think really does it. And that is something that you can have under your belt. You will not have to worry about the edge position anymore, right? That goes away. So now, if you're able to do that now in the draft, you can look for your offensive weapons, right? You can look for depth on the offensive line, right? You can even look for another safety if you're not okay with JT Woods or you don't believe in him or whatever, or you don't like the situation with him, Alohi Gilman. You can look for other things. I think Leonard Floyd solves a lot of issues for the Chargers right now. I honestly do. There's just too many. There's too many factors to consider when you bring in a rookie edge, especially if it's not a Nolan Smith. There's too many factors to consider. Even if it's a good guy that's coming out of college, right? Even if it's a blue chip prospect, this is somebody who still has to acclimate to the NFL, right? And we see there is the bust potential in the first round is high, right? We see it all the time. The NFL is hard, and I'm not taking any shots at anybody, but the NFL is hard. Bust potential happens, right? You don't hit every single draft pick, right? Every single year. There's no way that you can do it. It's just people business. It's a human business, and sometimes people don't adapt, right? there is a lot to consider with that. So you can have the highest hopes of a guy out of college and he might fall flat on his face, right? It's the NFL. He wouldn't be the first guy to do it, and he certainly wouldn't be the last guy to do it. Leonard Floyd is a guy who has been productive in his career. He's been productive. He knows what to do. He is a professional. He knows how to get along in the locker room. He knows what the NFL game is about. That is something that you would not have to worry about. And obviously, he has a connection with Staley, right? The Rams guys, we talk about it all the time. The Rams guys had that connection with Staley. He played under Staley when the Rams, when they had that what was it, a top 10 defense or whatever it was, when Staley was the coordinator for that 1 year. So he has a familiarity in the defense. He knows what's expected of him. Again, he's a veteran. He's been productive. He knows how to navigate himself in the NFL game, right? He's not a rookie. He's not bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. He can go into a game, get you pressures, sacks, force fumbles, right? Tackles for losses. He can do all of that stuff because he's done it his entire career. I like that. I really, really do like it. And the longer he stays out on the market, the cheaper he is going to get, right? Because I'm looking at 1 year, $5 million guaranteed for right now, right? If I was going to sign Leonard Floyd, that's what I would offer him right now. Now, the longer he stays unsigned, right? If we go another week, if we go another 2 weeks, the draft happens. If he stays unsigned after the draft, that price is going to go down because there's going to be a lot of edge players who get taken in the draft. There's going to be a lot of them, right? From rounds 1 through 7. There's going to be edge players who are going to fill in positions. They're going to fill in roster spots for a lot of teams, right? If the Chargers, if they play their cards right, if they play their hand right, they can get this guy on the cheap, right? And it could even be cheaper than a 1 year, $5 million contract. Again, that's for me right now. If he stays unsigned for another week, another 2, draft goes by and he's still unsigned, that price maybe goes down to $4 million, maybe $3 million, whatever it is, right? A 1 year prove it deal. But I think he is a guy that can come into the facility day one. Obviously, know the defense, obviously know what's expected of him, but can provide you with valuable insurance on the edge, right? And then when you look at 2024, when you look at Khalil Mack, when you look at Joey Bosa, when you look at their numbers, how much money they're going to be owed, right? One of these guys is not going to be here. One of them is not going to be here. I don't know who it is. Is it Mack? Is it Bosa? One of those guys is going to be out, right? You already have a guy in Leonard Floyd, especially if he has a productive 2023 season, he can be a guy that you look to sign, maybe give him a 2-year contract, right? A 2-year, 3-year contract, whatever it is, right? So he's a guy that can potentially be in your future plans as well, too, right? Not just for the right now, if you play your cards right, and if you are able to get out of one of the contracts with Bosa or Mac, right? He's going to be a guy that is going to be able to provide you some stability at that edge position, potentially, for another couple of years after that. So I look at Leonard Floyd as ultimate insurance. I really do. And I think it really makes a lot of sense for the Chargers. It does. You need that there. Again, Chris Rumph is, at this point right now, he's number 3 on the depth chart. Number 3. That is a scary proposition for any team. When you watch his tape, when you watch him getting pancaked by tight ends, when you watch him getting handled by some running backs in one-on-ones, that's not a guy who you want to count on to get pressure. If one of these, older big name guys goes down, it's just not ideal. So I'm looking for the Chargers to make this move. They need to make this move. A lot of people talked about John Johnson and all of this stuff. John Johnson would be a luxury signing. That would be good to have. It's a luxury sign. This hinges the season, though. You need edges. If you cannot get an edge, if Chris Rumph is out there playing significant snaps for you, you will not make the playoffs, and you will not win a playoff game, and Brandon Staley will be fired 100%. That you cannot, the Chargers have to get this edge position right. It wasn't good last year. Like I said, I thought Khalil Mack had the worst season of his career by far last year. He was ineffective last year. And, to count on that same guy, to count on Joey Bosa, who had almost a season-ending injury last year, to count on those two guys to be healthy all 17 games and to dominate and to be able to bring pressure and do all of the things that they have done in their career, that's asking a lot. It's asking a lot out of both of those guys. And to me, I don't think it's feasible. So this makes all of the sense in the world to me. if the Chargers are going to make this move. If they are going to make a move, this needs to be the move to be made, right? If you're not going to bring back Kyle Van Noy, or if you can get Kyle Van Noy and Leonard Floyd, right? If they're both asking the same price, give me Leonard Floyd. As much as I love Kyle Van Noy, Leonard Floyd is a true pass rusher. He's not a guy that moves around. He doesn't play in the middle. Kyle Van Noy is kind of the jack of all trades, master of none. Give me a guy who has mastered his position, and that's Leonard Floyd. He's made big plays in playoff runs. He's made plays in the Super Bowl. This is a guy with a wealth of knowledge and experience, and you can't get this in the draft, right? You can't get a guy with his experience in the draft. So if that's all it takes, 1 year, $5 million, maybe three, maybe four, right? If that's all it takes, that needs to be the move that is made. Honestly, I think so. I have thought about this take for a couple of days now, and every time I think about a take, I try to think of opposition points why the Chargers shouldn't do this, right? If it's a guy that I think that they should sign, I think of things, why wouldn't they sign him? And anything outside of money, outside of asking price, if asking price is there and it matches up, I can't think of any reason why not. I honestly can't. If somebody can, if somebody can think of a reason why not to bring this guy in, then feel free to to lay it on me. But I think it just makes all the sense in the world. Honestly do. From where he's at right now, where he just played, for who he played under, right? And Staley, it just makes all the sense in the world. And the Chargers should make this move. They really should. And that means that they probably won't, right? Anything that I feel strongly about, that means they probably won't do it. So I just had to get that take off. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. And from what I can see in the comment section, it makes a lot of sense to you guys as well too. So I just had to get that take off. I think it makes a lot of sense. Really do. Really do. Let's see, Cornell Jones. So is JT Woods gonna start or is he a bust? I don't think he's gonna start. I think he is a bust, but we'll see how they play it. We'll see what happens. We'll see what comes out of training camp. We'll see what comes out of OTAs, mini camp, and stuff like that, right? I expect to hear, and here's the game right here. Here's the game that a lot of these teams play. A lot of these NFL teams play. You're going to hear a lot of good stuff about JT Woods. I anticipate it, right? I anticipate it. I would bet money on it right now if I could. You're going to hear a lot of stuff. You're going to hear, oh, he's improved. You're going to hear, oh, he was the star of minicamp. He was the star of training camp. He was the star of whatever this, right? You're going to hear a lot of that. What's going to happen is, though, the politicking behind this is to really, really try to get other teams interested in this guy, right? Try to take a flyer on him. Maybe a safety somewhere gets hurt, right? Maybe, I don't know, maybe the Jesse Bates, right? He signed with Atlanta, right? Maybe he has an injury in training camp or whatever, right? You hear all of this good stuff. You hear all of this stuff going through the wire about JT Woods, how he improved his body. This is good. That's good. Blah, 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 right? You're hoping that a team takes a flyer on him. You're hoping that a team calls you about him and says, hey, this guy you've been talking about, we want him, right? We want him, and we'll give you a 5th-round pick for him, right? Bam, the Chargers are going to pull that trade. That's going to happen right away, right? They're going to take that trade knowing that they just put out a bunch of bullshit, right? A bunch of bullshit. Daniel Popper, all of these team reporters, they have all been tasked to put out the most positive stories about these guys who we know, are a little questionable, right? Maybe they can play, maybe they can't, but you're going to hear a lot of good stuff about him. You're going to hear a ton of good stuff about him. And whether or not they actually believe it, right, doesn't matter. They're trying to politic, and they're trying to get somebody to call and say, hey, we want this guy. You've been talking so great about him. We want him. That's what happens every single year in the NFL. It happens all the time. It happened last year with Josh Kelly. Now, I do think that Josh Kelly did improve, right? I think that he improved. I seen it with my own eyes. But the politicking that teams do, they were talking so much about Josh Kelly and how great he was, and even Joe Lombardi, Brandon Staley, both these guys were really, really high on Josh Kelly. What did they do last year, though? They didn't give Josh Kelly hardly any carries. He made the most out of the carries that he had. He was behind Sony Michel for a lot of games. And Sony Michel is not an NFL player anymore. He doesn't belong in the NFL. So it lets you know the mindset of these teams, right? They will throw things out there. And they do this all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. And people, you're gonna have to start to catch on to what they're doing. They're trying to shop guys. Anybody who they're really, really, you know, they're really talking great about, right? And notice it's always guys who are kind of like bubble-ish, right? They're guys who can probably be cut, guys who might be cut, right? They're not untouchables who they come out and talk about. They always come out and talk about these guys who are kind of bubble guys, bubble roster guys. They could be cut in training camp, whatever. They're trying to shop these guys off, right? Because they know that they potentially might be cut when it comes down to cut day. So they're trying to shop these guys for draft picks. And I expect the chart. They're going to do a lot of this. They're going to do a lot of this coming training camp, this coming OTAs. You're going to hear a lot of it because the Chargers need draft picks. They need draft picks. They're all capped out in 2024, and even a little bit beyond that as well too. So they need draft picks, right? And if this thing goes bad, if it goes off the rails, they are going to need to replenish this roster with a bunch of draft picks, right? And have a soft rebuild kind of. So I expect to hear a lot of that. Expect to hear a lot of guys that, maybe you never even heard of. They're going to be talked about in such glowing light because they're going to want to receive calls about them. They're going to want to, trade these guys and recoup some of the draft picks that they've wasted, right? So I expect to hear a lot of that. Just expect to hear a lot of that this offseason. You're going to hear a lot of good things about a lot of guys on this roster, and it's not going to surprise me. So don't let it surprise you, and always take it with a grain of salt. Wait till the season starts to see if they really feel this way. Because if they're talking glowingly about a guy all of camp, all of OTAs, and he comes out and he never plays in the games, they don't think that highly of him. It was all BS. This posturing, politicking, whatever you want to call it. That's what teams do. This is a business. I love that part of it. I really do love that part of it, but it is a business, right? And they can take advantage of some of the younger GMs, who are inexperienced, right? Who might not know better, right? They might take a flyer on some of these dudes. So I expect to see a lot of it. I really, really do. And look out for that. Be on the lookout for that this coming off season. Let's see. Jathan Reddy says Justin Houston. Justin Houston he's old. He's too old for me. He's been in the league for a very, very long time. He's been very good, very, very good. But to me, he's just too old. I just don't. I don't think you can add another old guy to this roster, right? Joey Bosa is not old in age, but his injuries make him older, right? He's an older player. It makes him older because of all the injuries, all the concussions that he's had. Khalil Mack, he's an older player now too. You can't bring in a guy that's older than those two guys, right? You got to bring in somebody who can stay healthy and show that they can play a 17-game season. Leonard Floyd can. Justin Houston, if he can play a 17-game season, it's a 17-game season that is not he's not having an impact on, right? He's just out on the field running around. So I would like to see Leonard Floyd. I think Justin Houston is past his prime, far past his prime, and I'm surprised he's still playing, to be honest. So I don't like that idea, the Justin Houston idea. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end it off here. I just wanted to come on here, cover some of these topics that I talked about. I'm gonna go ahead and end it off here. I thank you guys. Thank you. Appreciate everybody who has taken time out of your busy schedules to join me tonight. This was fun. I love doing these live streams. I love talking ball with everybody. Thank you guys for everybody who participated. I really, really appreciate it. And I'll be back sometime next week, right? Possibly, if news happens, possibly Monday, maybe Tuesday, whatever. But I will be back next week, probably early next week. I'm thinking maybe Tuesday, but we'll see for sure. And I'll let you guys know, of course, when I do go live. But thank you guys so much for all of the support. I really, really appreciate it. And shout out to you guys, man. Thank you guys. Can't thank you enough. So until next time, I will catch you guys later.